Welcome to Ask Me Anything, featuring spiritual medium and psychotherapist Kellee White.
Hi, everybody. I'm spiritual medium and psychotherapist Kellee White, and welcome to Ask Me Anything. And today is June 8th, 2023, and I have a really special guest. I cannot wait to bring on. It's going to be so fun. You're just going to love her. But let me say hi to everybody, and I'm going to do a little astrology. So hi, Bernadette. Hi, Christine. Hi, Angel. Hi, Dee Dee. Hi, Wanda. Hi, Sarah. Hi, Nettie from Halifax. We were just talking about Canada. Hi, Ruth. Thank you, Ruth. Hi, Renee Hounsel. Yes, the energy is otherworldly the last 3 days, right? I mean, and anybody on the East Coast, wow. Hi, Dawn. Hi, Allison. Hi, Marge. Hi, Angel Light. Hi, Vicki. And Vicki knows who our special guest is. Hi, Tracy. Hi, Tom. Hi, Linda. Hi, Lori Counts. Hi, Darlene. Hi, everybody. Hi, Linda, Jeanette, and Amy. So welcome. I'm so glad you guys are here because we have a really special guest tonight, and it's going to be wonderful. But I thought before we would go on, I'd talk a little bit about the astrology. Yes, this week has been friggin' crazy, I think. I think the energy's been very, very intense, and kind of crazy making. So, and I'm so sorry for the people on the East Coast, New York, Pennsylvania, all the way down. I'm so sorry for the air. It's got to be a horrible place to be right now. And please take care of yourselves, everybody. That's a really rough situation. And there's a lot of astrology going on, but I'm going to be really brief today, and then I'll get more of it on Monday's show with James. But currently, we have a lot of planets in transit, and I think that could cause a lot of this. But also, remember me talking about Jupiter and Rahu conjunct for this period of time. And that energy is very powerful and brings in another layer of intensity to this period of time that we're talking about that could bring changes in weather, changes in pattern, air quality. All of these things could be affected by this. So we also have right now Mercury, the fastest moving planet, just transited into Taurus in Vedic astrology. And for that is actually what I would say is a good thing, because it means increased creativity. It means focus. It means it's a good time to start something. Now, having said that, we also have a situation that's coming up, and that might be some of this energy that we're already feeling, because on June 17th, Saturn, the planet of karma, the planet of health and work, it goes retrograde in Aquarius. And that's going to be a very challenging time. And I suspect some of this energy that we're feeling now is that because when Saturn when it goes retrograde, before it goes retrograde, it slows really down, slows down. And I think that's what's happening right now to cause a lot of these issues in the air, in the world. So during this period of time, Saturn being retrograde, and it will be retrograde till the beginning of November. So this is going to be a very challenging time. It's the planet of truth. And interesting enough, my guest is, we're going to be talking about truth with her books that she's written. But I thought that was interesting, Kathy, if you're listening. And so Saturn makes us face our lives. It makes us face our truth, our experiences. What do we need to fix, heal, to grow, and to change? So this is what I'm going to say comes up mid-June, and I think we're already actually feeling a lot of this energy. It's still it'll be an intense, as I said earlier, I said, if you can imagine this, the second half I think is way more challenging than the first half, and this is not a piece of cake. So I think we have a lot of things that are challenging this month, a lot. So anyway, so now what I want to do is I want to talk to you about my guests. So I have a really special guest on, and I have to tell you, I have known our guest, Kathy is her name. I've known Dr. Kathy Forti. I've known her for many, many years. And Kathy is one of the most interesting people I have ever met. She's can talk in great detail about a number of things. And every time I am with Kathy, I always learn so much, and it's always an interesting road to go on. But let me tell you about Kathy. She's the author of a newly released Truth trilogy series. So Kathy, the fact that Saturn's going retrograde with this series, for you, that's a good thing. And it's called Stacks, the Library of Truth. And it's a 3-part series. Stacks, Awakening Truth, and Stacks, Truth Will Set You Free. And it's a sci-fi thriller, which takes place in Washington, D.C. at the Library of Congress, where a library employee accidentally opens up an interdimensional portal into a library within a library where all the truth is stored. So prior to Kathy penning novels, she was a clinical psychologist with over 30 years of experience in the mental health field. And her knowledge of psychopathology adds unusual character depth to her stories. And I'm always talking about the sociopath, borderline psychopaths. So, I mean, her knowledge is unbelievable. And there was a direct result of her own near-death experience. Kathy had a near-death experience in 2003, and her heart stopped. And Kathy became very creative as a result of this. And this led to the development of this, how do I explain this? She'll explain this, called Trinfinity8 and Ascension11, which is an energetic software technology that's now used by holistic practitioners worldwide. And I've used it, and it's amazing. So I could go on and on with Kathy because her background is amazing. And she currently lives in Maui right now, Maui, Hawaii. So please let me welcome Dr. Kathy Forti to Ask Me Anything. Hi, Kathy. Welcome.
Hello, my good friend Kelly.
Oh my God, we go way
Aloha
back
from Maui.
Oh my gosh, I remember when we both lived in Los Angeles, and one day you came over and you went to see me, and you said, "I'm moving." I said, "Oh my God, I'm moving too." Do you remember that? We were both like, I had no idea you were moving, and you
As I said, I had a dream, and the dream said, "You will be leaving California." And I said,
Right.
"Well, where am I going?" And they said, "Prescott, Arizona." And I'd never been there, didn't know anybody there, but it was like a 6 months heads up before COVID. And so I wrote out COVID in Arizona, and I started writing books. So
Wow.
Go figure.
Go figure. So
Right.
Where should we start? Because your background is so amazing. I didn't even mention this, but you also have led many, many tours to Egypt. I mean, I would say that you're an Egyptologist at this point.
Not the traditional, but the mystery school stuff. And I had a lot of past lives there, and interacted quite personally with some people that, I mean, I was no bigwig. I just kept being a priest all the time, but I was like 1 degree of separation from the royalty. And so I got to see on the front lines a lot of things that were going on. So when I went back there, all my memory banks really opened up, not all at once, but I don't know if I told you, I had a really profound experience for the first time with 3 other people by ourselves in the King's Chamber. I just laid down in the sarcophagus, and I started, toning, because it's such a wonderful sound chamber. Nobody told me to do this. And the next thing I saw in my mind the lid closing over the pyramid. Now, there is no real lid there in real life. And that second, I'm buried alive. And my guides had said, "You know what to do." And I found I did know what to do. I immediately slowed down my breathing, and I felt myself lift out of my body. And in my mind, a shaft opened in the sarcophagus, and I found myself traveling down through the pyramid, and saw water tunnels underneath there. Saw what looked like the remains of an old ancient city underneath even that. And so that, and then I kind of went out into the Sphinx and saw the tunnels under there. And I shot out the top of the head of the Sphinx, not knowing there really is a hole on the top of the head of the Sphinx. And then somebody leaned over the sarcophagus and said to me, "Are you done in there yet?" And immediately went back into my physical body and shut down the whole experience. But that told me, I've got to get down there and find those water tunnels.
So would you describe that as that you were astral projected?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Just so
And
for people who wouldn't understand what was happening. Yeah.
yeah, I know it was not a body of experience. And I talked with some of my guys in Egypt and I said, I know there's water tunnels down there. Now they didn't know there was water tunnels down there. So I said, I don't care how much it costs. I want to get down there. And so they started negotiating with, the head of the Giza Plateau and Antiquities. And they said, no. And who is this girl? And how does she know about these tunnels? And I could feel that people were checking me out from a distance. And, so I acted all benign and everything like that, no, nothing to see here. Just a, silly little girl who wants to pay for seeing some stupid water tunnels. And we finally came to, we negotiated and came to a price. Everything is negotiable in Egypt.
Wow.
And you grease a palm and you can get kind of what you wanted. And, I won't exactly say, but I would have paid a lot more than I did. It was sizable, but not that great a cost. And so at 4 a.m. in the morning with just the head of the Giza Plateau and my Egyptologist person, we in the dark with just one flashlight, traveled over the Giza pyramid to under the causeway. And there was like an iron door, and the head of the Giza Plateau handed me the key, said, "You want to open it?" I said, "Sure." and there was three levels there. There was nothing on the first level. The second level had all these niches for like 7 huge sarcophaguses that were empty. And the third level had the water tunnel. So we're going down about 125, 130 feet underground, and on these old iron, ladders. And I knew there was a sarcophagus buried under the water there in the tunnels.
Was that something that you would have seen when you had the out-of-body experience?
No, I didn't see that part.
Wow.
But when I went down there, the water was lapping around the last rung of the ladder. They call this the Osiris shaft. And it was discovered in 1952 by Dr. Salim Hassan. And then it was just kind of discarded. It's not the type of thing you bring most people down because the liability factor would be off the charts. People could really hurt themselves down there. So I saw the sarcophagus in the water and I knew that it was a portal, but that you had to have the right DNA to open this portal. It was hermetically sealed.
Now explain to everybody what a portal is.
A portal is an opening into another interdimensional level. And I knew it was part of the death process, to the underworld process, the funerary processes. How I knew this is kind of, kind of came to me. And that they did all the stuff through the water tunnels that extended to like the Hawara, which was 75 miles away. And, I took water samples and while I was there, took pictures quickly. And the water samples showed it was, was salt water, but the Nile River, which used to come up to the pyramid, is now like 5 miles away. And that's fresh water. So we're kind of far from the Mediterranean. So there was a lot of things I kind of needed to look at. And, I won't talk about the whole experience here, but the Pyramid Conference in Chicago once asked me to speak as a keynote speaker about my findings there and the water analysis that I had done and about that portal itself. And I actually included the portal experience in the Great Pyramid in book 1.
Oh, so let's talk about that, because all of these experiences that you've had, and before this, you had a near-death experience. Before we get into the books, you had a near-death experience as a psychologist. You were working as a psychologist, right?
That's right.
You had underneath in a parking lot, I think.
That's right. It was the night of the Wesak moon. And
which is about May 8th or May 6th.
It's always the first moon in May, first full moon in May, which is usually the first week or two. Yeah. And it signifies, which I didn't know, but I happened to have my last client of the day was a Buddhist nun. And she said, she told me it was the night of the Wesak moon. And I said, "Oh, what's that?" She goes, "Well, it symbolizes the day Buddha was born, the day he became enlightened, and the day he died. And the veils between the dimensions are very thin during that time, and anything can happen, So, I wasn't thinking about anything could happen, but on my way out to my car, I had that whoosh experience. All my old guides had left. And but when I got home, thinking about this, I suddenly found a swirling vortex in my head and I was propelled into the tunnel. And of course, then I had all these new guides come in. And, to make a long story short, because you could actually read it in my book, Fractals of God, or
Yes,
find
which is
another
a great
video
book.
of me.
Fractals
talking
of
about
God.
it.
It's a great book.
Yeah. And it landed a 5-year process of creating the Trinfinity8 and Ascension11 holistic healing technology, which is used all over the world. So that started it with these guides. They called themselves the founders. They said they were from the 8th dimension. They said I was from the 6th dimension and that I've done this before. And so it's just like kind of like, but a few things that I did find out, which is kind of interesting, and I'll share it here, is even though I was in the tunnel and they stopped me before I could go into the light, and later I said, why didn't I get to go into the light and see all that beautiful God stuff and everything everybody else says? And they said, well, some people need more convincing than others, and this wasn't the purpose why we brought you in there. And the other reason I found out later was that they did not want me to go into the light. I could have come back, but the fact is they said, if you go into the light, you will continue to reincarnate on the 3rd dimension.
Oh gosh, that would be a reason not to.
Yeah,
to have stopped it right then and there.
They said you are not going to, once you die from this lifetime, you're not coming back to the 3rd dimension. And so it's and I had asked them. I said, well, what do I do then? And they said, when you do pass over, it's not like you're going to the darkness or anything. You go to the still void within, and your own inner guidance will light the way to where you should go.
Wow.
So yeah, they said sometimes, it's sort of like a little bit of a trap, that light. It's like, oh, the dead relatives, come, right. Kathy, we miss you, we love you. Right. And you just go back and go, darn, I'm back on the 3rd dimension again. So yeah, I didn't know all that part at first, but as long over time you get enlightened to certain things, like why that happened, why this happened, and so forth. And my heart had stopped, and they got me to breathe life. They tried to breathe life back into my physical form. So but yeah, I came back as a physics geek, created the Trinfinity8 and Ascension11 software, not both at the same time. Trinfinity8 came first, and that was for, physical, emotional, anti-aging, and some spiritual. And then a number of years later, I created the all spiritual Ascension11 technology, a smaller version. And then they gave me the plot for Stax.
Yes. Yeah, so then how did that happen? Was this while you were in Prescott, Arizona, or was this when?
No, I was still in LA. I was still in Santa Monica.
Really?
And when I got the plot in my mind, and I thought, well, and I got up in the middle of the night, and the whole thing was there. The concept was there. Some of the characters were there, but it wasn't fleshed out, but I knew certain things that were supposed to happen in this thing. And so I started kind of writing them down. Then I thought, oh, maybe I'll take a screenwriting class. And I did, and it won a finalist, the best concept in the Slam Dance contest. But the writer's strike hit back then, and it kind of went on the shelf. But my UCLA professor at the time said, he said, someday you should consider making this into a book.
Wow.
And I thought, oh God, that sounds like too much work.
Right.
But COVID was the perfect time. And so I wrote the first book in Prescott, and the last 2 books here in Maui, Hawaii, where I live now.
Wow. So talk to us about the first book. Give us a rough idea of what it's all about.
Well, as you kind of gave them the whole thing, you gave them a little bit of the plot of this library employee in the Library of Congress. And, I knew that I had to get this right. I figured if I was going to stage something in the Library of Congress, which there's almost no books out there where the whole thing kind of takes place in the Library of Congress. You have kind of, National Treasure with, I forgot what his name was.
Elizabeth Taylor, or?
No. That was Nicolas Cage.
That one. Yeah.
That one just took a little tiny component. So, this place is amazing. And so
and you actually went there, right?
I actually went there. My guides had told me, make sure you get there no later than the first week of March of 2020. and this was in January, and I kept thinking, well, what's the rush? And
what's the rush?
You're ahead of me on this one.
Yeah.
And I thought, I have a group to lead to Egypt in February. When I'll make the arrangements. So I made it the first week of March. And of course, we all know by the second week of March, the whole country closed down. And I would never.
You were there that first week.
I was there
before this happened.
They closed down.
Wow.
Before they closed down. So I contacted the head of the main reading room, which is that rotunda, like, it's just beautiful. I mean, if you've never been there, you have to go. Wow. And there's so much symbology and masonry and architecture. I mean, it was started by, Thomas Jefferson. And so they took me behind the scenes in the stacks, and that's why I called it Stacks Library Truth, because the interdimensional portal is actually in the stacks, but people don't get to go in the stacks. And, you have to, it's off limits except to library personnel. And so I had to arrange in advance, just like the Egyptian water tunnels, but I didn't have to pay.
You're the queen of being, you are fearless. You just keep going.
and so, I arranged it in advance, got in touch with my congressman as well in Arizona, so for a few other things, and went behind the scenes, and it is amazing back there. Yeah, it is like a meat locker. They keep it very cold because these are very old manuscripts, and there's even the card catalog file is handwritten in black ink and goes back to the 1800s because it was started with Thomas Jefferson's original personal library, that he donated, and then it grew from there. But so, I went to every department. I poked my head in to learn the labyrinth of all the tunnels underneath the Library of Congress that go to, vendors' places and cafeterias. I mean, it's like a maze. It's just incredible, so that I could really get it accurate. You just can't imagine some of this stuff, right. And doing a virtual tour online just doesn't cut it. So I wanted it so in case a library employee ever read my book, they go, "Oh, she actually got it pretty right. That is how it is there. That's how things work." Wow. So yeah, I just had an incredible time there. In fact, I was in the main reading room, and you have to get a library card to get it to go into there, and which you can get it pretty much on site. They take your pictures and so forth, and the head of the master librarian at the Library of Congress happened to be in there at the time. I introduced myself, and she was with Garth Brooks.
Yes. Oh my gosh. What was he just on tour in the library?
He was doing something for the library, some talk or so. I don't remember what exactly it was about. He was in DC on a few things, and he came through, and of course you can't miss him with the cowboy hat and everything. I knew who he was, even though I'm not really a country western, a fanatic or anything. But he said hi. He was very nice. And so I decided to write a part of the first chapter in the main reading room. Wow. And to get the feel of it, soak up the ambiance and everything else. And as I'm writing it, I look up on the wall, and there's this beautiful, huge clock that's very ornate. It's got Father Time on it. It's gold. It's huge. It's right on the wall, but it's not keeping good time. I mean, it's way behind time. And I kept thinking, in a library like this, they should be winding their clocks. What's the story? So I did ask one of the librarians, and she goes, "Oh, that clock never worked." So I wove it into the story, why it never worked, and it was a key point as well. So I won't give away, these type of things. But, some of the things in there, I really did thought, this is great. I can make it as realistic as possible. And the characters, I mean, Zach Eldridge is, he's like a trust fund baby, but he's got acquired savant syndrome with synesthesia.
What is synesthesia?
Synesthesia. Okay, I'll explain that in a minute. Acquired savant syndrome usually comes from if you're not born with it. Usually there's some type of head injury, and in his case, he was hit with a little league at 7 years old with a ball, and it rewired his brain differently. And because of that, he became a math savant. And with the synesthesia, he could see numbers in everything. He could see pieces of pizza had numbers. He could see people had numbers. He could tell if the people were good or bad by the numbers sometimes around them or the pattern of numbers.
Now, if I go back in your history, didn't you have a situation with numbers?
Well, I had to learn mathematical algorithms to do my software, and I was not a math, I was not a math savant by any means. In fact, as I told many people, math was my worst subject in school. So I thought, I wonder what it would be like being in a situation where you can learn, 10 different programming languages in a short time. You can learn Sanskrit overnight, because Sanskrit, even the language of Sanskrit, is very methodical like math.
Wow.
And so he goes in there, and I don't want to tell the whole story, but he's summoned to the library to Washington, D.C. by his old friend of his, who is the master librarian. He gets there to only find out he's dead. And he knows that he's been murdered, and he really hasn't suicided himself. And so this starts a whole thing of, and this person wanted him to come because he was an expert in dealing with black holes. And now libraries have black holes all the time. Books get mismarked, misshelved, and at any time, 10% of your library or more could go missing, and nobody knows where it's at.
Oh my gosh.
And especially if there's some really interesting stuff that is supposed to be available and is suddenly lost.
Wow.
And so where does it all go?
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. Kim Ann Snodgrass says, in the USA TV show The Librarians, there is a female character with synesthesia. She said, I don't know how to spell it, but please forgive me.
No,
Have you heard of this show? I don't know the show.
Yeah, that was a long time ago. They're looking for ancient artifacts in that show. And that was with, I think, Noah Wiley or so forth like that. And it wasn't the Library of Congress. It was just, libraries in general. I don't know. I didn't watch the whole show. And there's different types of synesthesia. Some people, if you've ever read the book, Oliver Sacks books, people, the man who mistook his wife for a hat, and some people see colors around, musical symbols around, or they see when you play music, they'll see colors or so forth. And if you ask two people who both have the synesthesia, maybe with color or music, they'll both tell you they see it differently. It's not like they're not agreeable that, okay, no, it's orange. Definitely it's orange or something like that.
So did your psychological background help with the characters then?
Yes, because I wanted to make them all really believable. They all had foibles, so that they'd have a character arc. The Deep Throat television reporter, Kellee Cavallari, is a recovered alcoholic. And, she's trying to resurrect her career, even though people don't always listen to her because of the fact that she didn't get all her facts straight because she was drinking too much before, Mm-hmm. And then we have, there's this beautiful docent that he kind of falls in love with at the Library of Congress. And she's been under a domineering father her whole life and is trying to make a name for herself. And, in the meantime, there's this whole, there's this secret society that has been kind of like the Illuminati, has been controlling this Library of Truth and mankind for, centuries, decades, maybe since the beginning of time, well, all we know. And, he doesn't know who's involved all in this. And it's major players, not only in Washington, but around the world.
Wow.
And he has to try and stay alive while he tries to release some of this information with all the holographic information in the Library of Truth. And, the further he goes down the rabbit hole, the deeper it gets. That's why I thought maybe this was going to be one book. And the story just got deeper and deeper and deeper and turned into 3 books.
Oh my God. So you need to read the first one in order then.
Yes. I'm the queen of cliffhangers, so you'll have to read the second one.
Oh my God. And is it true that you're working on a 4th one for this?
Well, yes, it was funny because Kellee knows this person too. Her name is Karen Glass. She's a medium as well. And I've known Karen. She lives now in Maui here, and I've known her for a while. And, I was just talking to her one day, and she all of a sudden says, I see there's going to be a fourth book. And I said, no. There's only enough information for 3 books. And she goes, no, I'm seeing a fourth book. And so, I kind of forgot about it. And then one day I'm driving down Pi'ilani Highway. That's the main stretch through Maui here. And I wasn't thinking about the books, but all of a sudden, the whole fourth book, the idea came into my head. And it's little Izzy, the psychic child that was 7 years old in the other 3 books, grown up.
Oh my God.
And a real force to be reckoned with. And she's already, has incredible psychic powers in growing up and sees things. I kind of took it. I knew this one kid, a good friend of mine, and her son, who is autistic, would see black and red around people if they were bad, or if they had attachments or entities. And if they were okay and clear, he'd see rainbows around them. And so little Izzy can not only see that, but a lot more. And so she kind of is Zachary Eldridge's sidekick, the guy with the savant syndrome and synesthesia, and it kind of happens in a very strange, unusual way. And so yeah, you just have to read it and find out for yourself how that all happens. And I'll tell you, while I was writing this book, there were parts where I'm writing and I'm thinking, I don't know where this is really going right now. Am I on the right track here? I mean, always knew where it was going to end. And then all of a sudden some information piece would come through and I go, oh, that's where you want it to go.
How is your process then? Are you sitting thinking about it? Are you just allowing it to come in? Are you asleep when the information comes in?
Well, I'm wide awake. I have my information points. I do all my writing at Starbucks. I always have.
You always did.
No,
that's so funny. And you still do.
I still do. In fact, at the Starbucks I go to now, I come in the door. They all say, "Hi, Kathy." They get my drink ready and they bring it over to the table. They know I'm writing. And I've given them a couple books, so they know I'm writing. It's like the resident author in Maui here, and so I know that these guides have been giving me information. I mean, there was things that I didn't know were possible, and it would come into my mind, and I'd say, "Really, one can do that?" And say yes, and I, so it was. So these are kind of channel books too, just like my technology, and it's fast moving. Everybody says it's written like a movie script, because how it goes back and forth, and it's not like James Michener with Hawaii, where it takes 15 pages to describe the ocean.
Oh yeah, Oh, I do know. I did love that book though.
It's a good book, but
this is a page turner, is what you're saying.
Yeah. You don't need all that flowery description. You need some, but you don't need that all. And so. And
people can get it right now. It's available. All 3 are available now. Right?
Oh yeah, on Amazon. Yeah, Stack's Library of Truth, or you can look up Kathy J. Forti. And
I think Renee, can you put that up? I think you have that up here.
Or you can go to the stackslibraryoftruth.com website to get information.
Oh, here it is. She's posting it over here. Oh, great.
Like that. Yeah, as well. But it was so much fun doing this. That's why I said, I kind of had that little bit of postpartum depression, and I had to write the 4th book because during the COVID years, that's what I escaped into my world. And in my world, I could kill anybody I wanted. I could make them say anything I wanted, and I could solve the problems of the world where I really couldn't in real life,
Yeah. Wow.
So I totally indulge myself. Yeah.
But it's very exciting stuff. I mean, I've always loved to watch your process. And when you inhale something, you really go into it. I've always said you're not from here, Kathy. I mean,
James told me that. James Van Prague told me that once. Remember I had that free reading he did on the ship in Australia.
We were in Australia together.
My name out of his head, and he goes, "Oh, Kathy Forti, I'm going to give you a reading."
Yes, that's right.
And he said, "Oh, there was a cast of thousands there when it was ready." He said they were already coming in during a prior thing, and the first thing he said is, "Oh," he says, "I don't know what this means." first of all, he says you're not from this world because, but I always thought you were an alien. He says, you're from the Melchizedek energy. And he says, you're going to have to find out what that means because I have no idea. And yeah, of course I didn't know what that meant. But
yeah, exactly. Everybody's saying it sounds like a great read. And have you given Starbucks a cameo in your books? That's a good question.
Did I give them a thank you at the end in the acknowledgments?
Or did you even put a little cameo in your books?
No. I didn't do the Starbucks in that book. No, they make enough money from everybody. they don't need any new plugs. I mean, if I counted up all the money, that I've spent.
Oh, I can only imagine.
But I don't smoke. I don't drink. I don't do drugs. I don't do coffee. I drink tea, chai tea, and
you were a vegan for a long time too. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was tough. Now, the first book I didn't write at Starbucks because Starbucks was closed, due to the pandemic. But, I made aside from my regular office where I do my Trinfinity8 and Ascension11 business stuff, I made a table in another room that I would just go to and do that. And I'm of the Stephen King. I'm not Stephen King, obviously. I wish I was. But no, I don't wish I was. He's really crazy.
But I wonder if his process is similar to yours.
His process is similar because he says he would write every day from 3 to 5 pages. Now, I would write 6 days a week, and I said I'm shooting for 3 to 5 pages. A couple of days in there, I'd go over 5 pages. So I took a page out of his book, and once you get into the flow, it's not a hard thing to do. It's sort of like, I know some people take years to write a book, but maybe they only get to write it, for a few hours once a week or every other week, and I really structured that time to do that. Well, the Fractals of God book that I wrote, which is about my near-death experience, that really only took 6 or 7 months too. So,
I remember how fast it was.
Yeah.
I remember that. Oh, people are really looking forward to getting the series. Lisa Jamausian says, I keep getting chills throughout this entire talk. I look forward to reading it.
Oh, good.
I think it's
if you read it and you buy it through Amazon, please leave a review. Thank you.
Absolutely. And this is from Renee Hounsel. Hi, Renee. She says, blessings, Dr. Forti. When creating the characters, were you at any point experiencing the energy as a living entity guiding you through their experience of savant or synesthesia?
It's okay. Nobody can pronounce that right. I'm not going to correct it, but that's okay. Good, Renee. That was a good attempt. Yes. Because people ask me, who is that most like you? And I said, I'm kind of all of my characters, I've got the curiosity, intense curiosity of my main character, Zach, even though he's a male. And I'm not the genius he is, obviously. But it's sort of like, this intense curiosity. And I have a little of Izzy in me, and Kellee Cavallari, the reporter, even though I've never been a drinker, as Kellee well knows.
I will know.
You'll attest to that.
I will attest.
That she's a lot like me, because before I went into journalism, before I went into psychology, I was in the journalism world in New York City at WCBS News. So I drew from all of that experience in the television world and transferred it to her. And she's kind of brash and loud-spoken and so forth. And I can tend to be that way at times.
But you know what I've always loved about you, Kathy, is no matter what, you just keep going. You just forge ahead and forge ahead and forge ahead. And you're always doing something really creative and interesting.
Well, I'm easily
good
bored,
inspiration.
Kellee.
Is that what it is? Because you get bored? Wow.
Yes. It's sort of like once I've done something, it's sort of like oh, can I do this as well? I mean, I never thought I'd go for my PhD, but I thought, well, why not try it? I'd be the only first one in my family that did it. Yeah. And I did find that, the farther I went up as most PhD, the easier it got.
That's very true.
Yeah, most people don't know that because you're really focused.
Yeah.
And the professors are a little bit more easier on you because they know you're not there to fool around.
Right.
So it's real hard. It's really easy to get, A's and things like that and so forth like that.
But you love to learn. You also love to learn. I mean, you are a queen of clubs, and I always talk about birthdays. So you're a queen of clubs, which is all about information.
Yeah. It's sort of like some of you don't know that when we lived in Santa Monica, I would sometimes go to Kelly's office just to shoot we'd exchange things, like one therapist to another, kind of off the record, not really a therapy session or anything, but, it's like, what do you think of this? I remember one time I was asking my father who had died, for something, I was asking about, and I went to see Kelly and I wasn't even thinking about that. And she goes, your father's already here.
I don't remember that. Yeah.
He answered the question, so.
Well, do you think that is helping you because he passed away and then you had the near-death experience after he passed away?
No, I had it be right before he did.
Right before? Okay.
It was maybe, let's see, it was in May and he died in July. So it was a few months before.
Yeah.
He was 2003. So it was like 2-3 months. And I remember telling him about my experience and he was very, I'm glad you're still here. But then when he passed over, he came through a friend of mine who's a clairvoyant and said he wanted to thank me. And I said, thank me for what? And he said, well, you were right. And I didn't know that when I was telling him this, he was just kind of paying me lip service, like, oh, this sounds really woo-woo. And I love Kathy. I'm not going to put her down. I'll just agree with her and fine. But when he passed over, he remembered what I said and knew what to do. And because of that, he comes around more. So my mother, I know, has moved on to higher dimensions. She came through right away after I died within the first 24 hours because I had already made a pact with her. If you can make contact, please do. And so she did in a lucid dream. And I first felt all this love behind me in this dream. I mean, it was just overwhelming love. And I turn around to see where it's coming from. And my mother kind of swivels around and she's looking very young and glowing. I mean, because she looks young. And I remember thinking, now don't get too emotional because you'll propel yourself right out of the lucid dreaming. I've even tried to eat in a lucid dreaming and it doesn't work.
Right. I know.
Yeah. I mean, like a carrot inside a refrigerator and right out, And so I started to ask her, what was that transition experience like? And she was just about to tell me. And then in real life, the phone in the kitchen rang from a cousin who was in another time zone, having just heard my mother had passed the night before. And of course, took me right out of the dream. And my sister says, when I told my sister about my mother coming through, she goes, go back in that bed and go back to sleep. See if you can get her back.
Yeah, right. Exactly. That's so funny.
That way.
It doesn't work that way. So Kim Ann Snodgrass asked, Kathy, I'm curious, since you are in Hawaii, have you ever practiced I never can say this right. Ho'oponopono. I'm not going to say it right. Ho'oponopono. Do you know what that is? The Hawaiian.
Like huna stuff. I mean, did she say Melchizedek after receiving blessing? Maybe I was given a promise from Jehovah. That's right. Well, I can go into a whole story of Melchizedek. I probably won't right now because
I love Melchizedek.
Yes.
Love.
Yeah. The school of Melchizedek, the cosmic priest to the priests.
Yeah.
So the Hawaiians have so many different ways and ceremonies. I'm not well practiced in that particular one, but there's so many healers.
It's a Hawaiian forgiveness prayer. Here you go.
Oh, the Hawaiian forgiveness prayer. I probably heard it, probably didn't realize it was the Hawaiian forgiveness prayer. A lot of the healers that I work with here are not native. There aren't too many real natives left anymore. But, do you remember that huge floor crystal I had in Santa Monica?
It was unbelievable. Yeah.
Well, of course, I've lugged it everywhere I've gone, and I've taken it to Maui with me. It stands about up to my waist.
Wow.
And it's big around, and it takes 3 men to move it. And this is the first time I put it outside. It's always been inside, but I put it outside on my grounds here. And because it wanted to be outside. And I'm sitting out there one day, and as clear as could be, the crystal starts talking to me. And it says, even if you don't stay here, I want to be left here. And I want to be left on Haleakala.
Wow.
And then it told me that the grid, the Hawaiian grid, many, many years ago, because that was ancient Lemuria, and which was a matriarchal society. That's why all the women healers are returning to Maui. And men who seem to come here get a little bit weaker because there's so much female energy. They kind of have to go back to the mainland to get their mojo back, you might say. And so it said that the elders and the shamans had put together a wonderful grid, this energy power grid around the Hawaiian Islands, which was all part of ancient Lemuria, and that over the years it has weakened. Ko'olave, they bombed it, used it as a bombing range during World War II, and things like that. And that I started to find out that they were amassing crystals, a big one on Kauai. They were talking about the Big Island. And I think the crystals are trying to reconnect to strengthen this. So I started to talk to some tribal elders about possibly making sure that the the crystal would be placed.
Karen is asking, what kind of crystal is it?
It's a quartz crystal. But, when it comes to a terminated point, I wish I had a picture right here of it.
It was amazing.
It is amazing. I remember getting it from a guy in Malibu who was liquidating, and I got a huge 6-foot tall amethyst geode from him too. Practically out of steel. And I knew immediately that was a power crystal. And I've used that power crystal in my remote healing sessions on the Trinfinity8. I've tied it in because it's a workhorse crystal. It wants to connect with other crystals and do its job. So, I recognized right away that I got a really special deal. It was only $1,000.
Unbelievable, actually, for a crystal of that magnitude. Exactly, I'll take it. I remember saying that to you. Is there any more? Did you have any more? Tell us about your machine, what Trinfinity8 is, because I know people want to know how it's used.
I saw that, Nana. Huo'oponopono.
Yeah.
It's hard to pronounce because, first time you get here on this island, you just say, there's only 13 letters in the Hawaiian alphabet and everything's an H or a K or a W. And you can't pronounce anything, but you have to sound out every single vowel.
Then I'll never get there.
It drives you nuts. Anyway, so the Trinfinity8 is based on mathematical algorithms, not frequencies. In fact, something that they did tell me was that, during Royal Raymond Rife time, the Rife frequency, and I'm sure probably many of you have heard of it, but, there weren't all the frequencies in the world bombarding us at that time when Rife was doing all that experimentation. Now we have 5G cell towers. We have, everything is, so it's not the pure frequency form anymore like Rife's were. So, but math is the universal language of the world, and it speaks to ourselves, a consciousness of ourselves in a language it understands because our DNA is mathematically coded. So that was the thing of putting together these mathematical algorithms for thousands of different substances and so forth, that they could be transmitted to the body through pure quartz crystal rods, that you hold in your hands, kind of like the ancient Egyptians did. The pharaohs had 2 rods in their hands, and one was zinc, the other was copper, and they were filled with crystal, and they balanced out the yin and the yang, and the pharaohs never went anywhere without they called them the rods of Ra or the wands of Horus or so forth like that. So this is just kind of the modern day version of that. And, So it also incorporates the science of fractals, and fractals, if you couple that with mathematical algorithms, enhances and strengthens the signal going to the person. And then I used certain tones, solfeggio tones, that had only one frequency to it, that were known to help set up a resonance in the body. And so when I did this, hardly anybody knew about solfeggio.
And when somebody works with you or one of your practitioners, it could be to help them through different anything. I've had people even use it to clear houses. I have somebody now on the island here. She's using it in her colonic treatments in her water fills. Wow.
And she's getting ready to put out something on that research project. She did over, I guess, 200 people and did a questionnaire and so forth, and how different. They said that it was a much easier colonic. I've also used it here in swimming pools, because I suddenly, when I got here around water, I was really into water. And I thought, well, how can we infuse swimming pools, with water and treatment, so that you could actually go in the pool and get the benefits of it. So I went to a lab that specialized in underwater speakers, and got the whole setup with the amplifier and so forth like that. And my first thing was going out into the ocean, because you can put it in a swimming pool or in the ocean. And I found that when I dropped it, on a rope, of course, I didn't let it go totally into the ocean, and I played the program I Am Love, we suddenly had dolphins coming around.
Oh my God. Wow.
So, they were curious about, what is this? Because, their sonar can pick it up a long way. I mean, during whale season here, you can stick your head under the water and hear whales that may be 30 miles away. Wow. You can hear their singing and everything else, especially the males. I mean, the males are the ones that sing, because that's their, they come here to mate, and the females come here to mate as well, or to calve. And so I decided I was going to take it into swimming pools. So I lowered it. First of all, I took it out to a Reiki practitioner in Lahaina, and she had my technology, and I said, I want to experiment. Can I use your pool? And she had a saltwater pool. And so before all these people came, her clients came into the pool, I prepped the water just with the I Am Love, and I could feel the water was actually getting warmer. Wow. And we did the pH balance, and it stabilized the pH balance in the pool, which I didn't expect to see that, because at the time I had somebody who knew pools was working in, and they actually did the test. So then I then brought the floating platform, which I had 4 crystals in it, which connected to my computer, and the algorithms were streaming into the water. You couldn't submerge the whole crystals, but it was sort of like that, a floating tray that you would use for drinks and something like that. And I did that, and then everybody took those noodles, those water noodles, and they put one under their neck and one under their ankles, so that they could float. Their ears would still be hearing the water in the pool. And it was the most incredible experience. You could feel the music go through you. And people said they kept feeling that their body was moving towards the floating platform that had the crystals. And this one woman, I mean, everybody was telling experiences, but the one I remembered the most was this woman. She was a retired Coast Guard. And she told this story about, she said, I've saved many people's lives over the years, but there was these 2 sisters, and I was only able to save one of them. I couldn't save the other. She said, it has plagued me. I felt so bad over these years and guilty that I couldn't. And she said, well, I was floating in the pool, and I was playing. Remember, I prepped it with I Am Love, but while they were in the pool, I did I Am Healed. Oh. And she said, the dead sister came to me while I was floating there and thanked me for saving her sister that lived, because the parents needed that sister more at that time in their life than they would have needed her. And she said, and I just was crying. She said, it was just such a relief. I could feel just letting go of all that stuff I've been carrying around, because she said, I was so close to saving both, but I just couldn't.
Wow, Kathy, that's enormous. That's enormous.
Yeah, it gives me chills still when I think
me too.
That.
God. Here's a question from Charlene Miller. She says, as a woman healer, you are obviously an empath. Are you able to separate yourself not to pull in other people's pains? And if so, how do you do that?
Well, when I first had my near-death experience, I was going into my sessions and feeling everybody's stuff, their anger, their gunk, and it was not good. And so, that did lead to me eventually retiring my practice and full-time going into developing the Trinfinity8 software. But, now I'm not like, it's sort of like, after a while, you kind of learn to put the filters on. you know, and I'm sure Kellee, you can,
Oh, I feel the same way. Yeah. Now I don't.
But in the beginning, you're just, you know, it's like
you do.
open.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so true.
Yeah, you know, but I can still feel certain things, but not necessarily. I mean, if I walked into a whole room of angry people, I would definitely feel that.
That's right. Okay, so Lisa Jamalzian says, are there Trinfinity practitioners in South Florida?
Yes. And, you know, you can go to info@trinfinity8.com and just ask for somebody. We, you know, we have a practitioners page on that, but we actually took it down because people were kind of mining our, you know, our data from that. And so we said, you know, why don't you just contact info and my office manager, you just tell them where you're from, what zip code, and they'll match you up with somebody. But remember, you can do these sessions remotely as well. You don't need to be in person.
That's true. Anne Margaret says, Kathy, can you share why DNA is mathematically coded versus frequency coded? I thought cells talked to each other via frequency vibration. Isn't that resonance?
That's a good question, Anne Margaret. Yes. Well, you know, the world is filled with frequency. I'm not totally dismissing that, but the guides had told me that math was a faster route into the cellular structure. And because of the frequencies in our world all around, you know, being bombarded by that. And that's, you know, when I talked about Rife and so forth like that. But, you know, so I know there's a lot of devices out there that focus on frequencies, and I'm not disparaging them or so forth like that. This is what I was taught. And, you know, if it helps you, that's all that matters, you know, whatever mode it comes from. So, crystals talk to each other, that's for sure.
That's for sure.
And we can feel that vibration and resonance. And that's why it was important that I bring in certain musical tones that were of a specific frequency in the Trinfinity8, because they set up a resonance in the body where they said it made it more conducive for the information to come through. Okay, so it kind of primed, like, you know, oil priming a pump or something, like it set the stage and made it easier. So so that's how I used frequency, but it was specific. It wasn't, you know, it's sort of like if I'm using for DNA repair, I'm going to use 524 hertz or something, or you know, 930. I mean, all those frequencies, the Solfeggio frequencies, if you add them up, there's 9 of them. But if you add up like 5, 2, and 4, that's did I just say that right? 5,
2, and
4. No, that's not right. 524 hertz. Excuse me, which is and all of them equal 3, 6, or 9. And you know, Tesla talked about if we only knew the significance of 3, 6, and 9, we'd have the keys to the universe. So multiples of 3s are very important in the energetic world.
Wow.
Yeah.
Here's a quick question, and then we've got to go. But from Kim Ann, she says, where do you stand on 5G? Is it not healthy for humans?
You know, I wish we could get rid of all of it, to be honest. And there's no way of escaping it. I mean, when I lived in Santa Monica, they wanted to put up a cell tower right across the block on these people's, you know, building. And there was kids in there that had cancer. And I remember we all went to the Santa Monica, you know, city council meeting, and they let us just spew our disagreement. And then they said, well, I'm sorry, there's nothing you can do because it's federal law. We can put them wherever we want. And there's not that many in Maui, you know, thank God. But, you know, it's sort of like, you know, they don't always listen to us. Well, they almost never listen to what we think, and especially if it's for one's health. You know, they've always got another solution to it. So I'm sorry about that, but you know, it's kind of hard to, you know, unless you're in a place where there's not going to be much. But if you're in a big city, it's hard to escape it. It really is. So
true. Tippy Landa says, fascinating, and you have an amazing mind. Tippy, that is the truth. That is the truth. Angela says, what an extraordinary show. Thank you. I mean, really, and Margaret says, thank you. This is,
somebody did ask if the Trinfinity8 would produce cymatics. The Ascension11 was with cymatics. I sent an information file to the cymatics lab in England. I didn't tell them was on it. And I just wanted to know if they could make it resonate into, patterns, if what would happen. They came back and they said it had the most complex sacred geometry patterns they'd ever seen. They asked me what it was, and I said it was the algorithm information file for golden light to the pineal gland.
Wow.
So
wow.
Yeah, we didn't use, we used fractals and Trinfinity8 and cymatics in Ascension11.
Wow. I mean, so if anybody wants to find out more information about you, about your books, to order the books, where does everybody go? Renee, can you put that up again? You're on Facebook?
Yeah, there's Facebook, or you can go to Amazon, or you can go directly to that website, stackslibrarybooks.com or Trinfinity8.com or Ascension11. But the books, they're primarily on Amazon right now. Ingram Sparks, you can get them through Barnes and Noble, but they're not, posting that. Like most of my sales are all coming through Amazon.
And did you say that the first two are on audio?
The first one is on audio. The second one, I'm getting ready to have them approve it. It has to go through an approval process on Audible, and it should be out in about another week. And the third one will probably be done for that book come September.
Wow. Well, Kathy, you're fascinating. And thank you so much for being on our show tonight. And everybody, on Monday, James and I are going to be talking about families. So get ready, because we're going to be talking about families, all the dysfunction that goes on spiritually with a family, and what happens when you're here on Earth. So thank you, Kathy, for being my guest today. And I will see everybody on next Monday. Take care.
You've been listening to Ask Me Anything, featuring spiritual medium and psychotherapist Kellee White.